I think they're going to introduce names first, so it may not happen right away.
2 minutes. So they're going to start writing.
And while we're waiting, I'll go ahead and give you the names and the spellings of those that will be speaking or likely to be speaking. The Governor of the State of California, Jerry Brown. The District Attorney of San Bernardino County, Mike Ramos. David Bowditch, who is the Assistant Director in charge of the LA office of the FBI.
Can you stand in front of the mic, please? Right. Okay.
San Bernardino Police Chief, Jared Burguan. And San Bernardino County Sheriff, John McMahon. Everybody got that? Anybody need anything repeated?
Is Bowditch the director or assistant director there? Thank you.
He's the Assistant Director. The last two is San Bernardino Police Chief, Jared Burguan. Spelling of his last name is B-U-R-G-U-A-N. And San Bernardino County Sheriff, John McMahon. M-C-M-A-H-O-N.
Will there be another presser in the morning, press briefing?
We have not determined that.
I'm getting ahead of myself. Is this the inland region right here?
It is. It's the building behind the trees there.
Is that where it happened right there?
Yes, it is.
That's where the cars of employees.
Correct. Okay, the first speaker is going to be the Governor of the State of California, Jerry Brown.
Good evening. This is really, really a sad day for California, for San Bernardino, for the families of the victims. We face a real threat, but we have a fabulous group of people, sheriffs, policemen, FBI, other personnel. We're all working together, and we have to rise above all the jurisdictions that we're a part of, and we're working as one group, one people. And my concern is to make sure that everything that can be done is being done, and going forward, that the state of California provides the resources and works very closely with both local officials and our federal counterparts to make sure that we can protect the people of California. When it comes to people who engage in these kind of vicious, brutal acts, we'll spare nothing in bringing them to justice and protecting the people along the way. So I don't know what this means going forward, but I think we have to be on our guard. We can't take anything for granted, and I just want to assure my fellow citizens here in California that we're going to go just as far as we have to make sure that public safety is protected. Thank you.
First and foremost, I want to thank the governor for being here. Mike Ramos, District Attorney. I'm a very fortunate District Attorney. We're working cooperatively with the U.S. Attorney's Office, U.S. Attorney Irene Decker, and I can't tell you how proud I am of the teamwork of both our local agency, San Bernardino Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, and our federal partners, the FBI and others. And finally, as the District Attorney, we are very saddened of the loss of the victims, family members, some family members of attorneys in my office, and we are going to be there for the victims. If you go to @SB County DA on the Twitter, you will have a direct line for victim services. Any other family members that need support and help, we will be there for you. Thank you.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank you for your patience. As we've said from day one, this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's a tragedy that occurred. We will continue to do everything in our power, bringing all the resources to bear of the federal government to work hand in hand with our state and local partners on this matter. We continue to exploit all the evidence possible, and as I've said from day one, the evidence will lead us to the facts. We will go where the evidence takes us. Thank you again for your patience.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for being patient. I know we were going to try to do this a little bit earlier. 4:30 was what we were shooting for. We just couldn't quite make that happen. But thanks for sticking with us. Were we able to get those pictures up? So we have some pictures of the crime scene where the officer-involved shooting took place. We'll be able to provide digital copies of those images online for everybody that wants them. But they are pictures of the weapons. They are pictures of the suspect vehicle and a few others in there. We wanted to provide that. Additionally, I've got a few more statistics and numbers for folks just as an update from earlier information that we have put out. As we said, this was a Department of Public Health event. As it turns out, it was an event that was training in the morning, that was transitioning to a holiday Christmas party luncheon in the afternoon. And this happened right about the time of that transition. There were 91 invited guests that were there. We believe that there were about 75 to 80 people that were present in the room when this occurred, or that ultimately came to that party. We don't have the exact number because they had a sign-in list and we're still working through some of those dynamics. We don't know that everybody signed in. Of the 21 people that were injured, 18 of them have been identified as county employees.
How many?
18 of the 21 were county employees. The other 3 were not county employees. Of the 14 people that are deceased and their identities have been released now, 12 of those individuals were county employees, County of San Bernardino. 2 of them were not. And then finally, one of the questions that came from the media is that you wanted to hear from one of the first responders when we responded to this on Wednesday morning. So I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Mike Madden. Spelling is M-I-K-E, last of M-A-D-D-E-N. Mike is actually one of our administrative commanders for the police department. He's a 24-year veteran. As an administrative guy, he really has a desk job. The reality is at 11 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, Mike was on his way to lunch when this call went out, and he didn't hesitate. Mike was the first officer that was on scene, and he was the first person that we had that gathered the first units that went in and addressed this. So I'm going to let Mike kind of tell the story of what they experienced firsthand, and then we'll take a few questions for Mike as soon as he's done.
Thank you, sir. I guess I was just asked to come forward and talk a little bit about what it was that we saw and we experienced yesterday. And I'll tell you that it was something that, although we trained for it, it's something that you're never actually prepared for. When we got the call, I oversee dispatch. It's one of my functions and responsibilities with the police department. And I know my dispatchers. I know the tone of their voice. I know the severity of calls as they're going out. And I could hear it in our dispatcher's voice that this was actually happening. This was a real event. And it was the event that, you know, we have an active shooter, and we have an active shooter going on in our city. And I was nearby. I was less than a mile away, and I started coming this way. And I realized as I was getting closer that I was one of the very first units there. Myself and Officer Sean Sandoval arrived almost simultaneously, and just out of pure luck, because the information was evolving so rapidly, it was out of pure luck that I happened to pull into the right location, which was just south. The road that you see here just north of us, it was just south of the building where this tragedy took place. As I was looking and seeing all of the activity and trying to assess what was happening, I was informed that that was the location where this was happening, and I was asking for officers to respond as quickly as possible, because we had every belief at that time that we had people still actively being shot inside of the building. My goal was to assemble an entry team and enter into the building to engage the active shooter. This mindset and this type of training became indoctrinated in us after the Columbine incident, and that was the goal, that we wanted to get in there and we wanted to stop any further innocent people from being injured and possibly killed. As 3 officers arrived, there was an approximate 2-minute time lapse from the time that I got there until we had a team assembled of our 4 initial responding officers, and the 4 of us then went around the south side of the building. As we made our way around to the east side, it was immediately evident that the reports that we were getting were 100% true. There were victims who were clearly, obviously deceased outside of the conference room, and I relayed that information to the other responding officers and again requested assistance. As we entered into the conference room, the situation was surreal. It was something that I don't think, again, we prepare for, and they try to, an active shooter, we talk about sensory overload, they just try to throw everything at you to prepare you for dealing with that. What you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're smelling, and it was all of that and more. It was unspeakable, the carnage that we were seeing, the number of people who were injured and unfortunately already dead, and the pure panic on the face of those individuals that were still in need and needing to be safe. We got as many people out as quickly as we could. We had approximately, I estimated in talking with the other officers who were with me, probably 50 people responded past us and out the doors. And then we went further into the building, and that was a difficult choice to have to make as well, passing people that we knew were injured and needed assistance. But our goal at that time had to be trying to locate the shooters and deal with them before we could get further assistance in for those people in need of medical attention. I was very glad to see that in a very short period of time, we had a number of other responders that came in and were able to formulate tactical teams and then continue on with the search. And I was then able to pull back from the situation and go back into handling more of a supervisory role and allowing the other officers to continue with the remainder of the search. Does anybody have any questions?
Did you think there was still an active shooter? What were you thinking about in terms of there might still be someone in the room? And my second question is, how are you doing personally? How are you handling this?
First question there was, we absolutely believe that there was another shooter. We were told that there were as many as potentially 3 shooters, but again, we were getting information from multiple callers, and people weren't, clear as to exactly how many shooters we did or did not have. Some were seen potentially reporting double, suspects and things of that nature. So we were told that one of the suspects had possibly fled in the black vehicle prior to our arrival, but there were as many potentially as 2 more shooters inside, and when we entered, there was fresh gunpowder and the smell of gunpowder in the air, leading me to believe that there were in fact shooters still.
You are trained for this, obviously, but when you talk to people who've gone through this, you can never be trained for what it really happened. You can only rehearse so much. How emotional was it for you? I mean, we're looking at you, it looks like there are tears in your eyes right now.
To be honest, you guys, it was a little surreal. It was, you train for it and you know that your job is dealing in reality, but it seemed a little surreal, but yet, I did the job that I was supposed to do. My job is to go in there and, people don't call the police because they're having a great day. They call because there's tragedy going on, and this was tragedy that I've never experienced in my career and that I don't think most officers do. And so we had to deal with it, and we had to help bring them to safety and try to bring some kind of calm to the chaos that was going on. So, it just knowing though that, yeah, we resolved that situation quickly, but there's so much tragedy that's left behind. There's so many families as we go into these holiday seasons that are now going to have to deal with the tragedy that were left behind by this senseless acts of violence. That's a little tough to deal with.
You talked about the panic that you saw in people's faces. How do you deal with them? What do you say to them? How do you calm them down when you yourself are going through this chaotic situation?
You know, you have to be clear in your orders. The initial 50 people did not want to come to us. They were fearful, and they were in the back hallway area, and that actually heightened my concern that and my fear that potentially the suspects were in that hallway holding them hostage and waiting for us to enter into the hallway. We had to tell them several times, come to us, and ultimately they did. And once that first person took the motions forward, it opened the floodgates, and everybody wanted to come and get away from that as quickly as possible. So, you know, we can't panic in those situations. These people have already dealt with enough. The last thing they need to see is their police officers panicking.
Lieutenant, was it silent in there, or did you hear screams? Can you tell us a little bit about what you're taking in?
It was extremely loud. The fire alarms were going off. There were people who were obviously injured and obviously in great amounts of pain, and that was evident in the moans and the wails that we were hearing in the room. It was very loud in the room, and we also had fire sprinklers going off inside the room, so that was adding to further chaos.
And were they immediately trying to offer information about the shooters, or did you get a sense they didn't even realize what had just happened to them?
We were my primary goal was to find out how many and where they were, and I was asking individuals, but again, panic was obvious and apparent, and so we weren't getting a lot of further information in regards to that.
What happened when you found the bomb? Did you find the bomb? Your team found the bomb?
No, our team did not. Our team did not find any of the explosive devices. Those were found later.
The room, there was like a holiday party where the decorations, food, tables, chairs.
That sums it up. Yes, it was. It's a fairly large meeting room, and I noticed upon entry that there's a Christmas tree in there. All of the tables were decorated for a Christmas party, and it just seemed so senseless that here's people going into their holiday festivities, and now we were dealing with that.
Lieutenant, you talked about the training that you have and whatnot, but how do you stay calm? Did you take a deep breath going in there? Did you think about it? Did you feel the adrenaline going through your system?
Yeah, I'm sure I did. But you can't let your emotions override your judgment, and you need to do the job that we're supposed to do. It's what we're trained to do.
Lieutenant, what has it been like you for the last day and a half? It seems like an incredible trauma for all the people, all the victims, but you yourself and the other responding officers.
I tried to make a point of those officers that I knew were some of the initial guys in with us, which there were many officers who did extraordinary jobs yesterday for our department, and also for all of the agencies who responded so quickly. It was truly overwhelming to see all of the agencies that got here in a hurry to provide us assistance, because just like I said, I was sensing that this was a true event. They had the same sense, and they got here, and nobody hesitated. People knew what their job was, and their job was to try to bring some calm to chaos. And so it's one of those things, I've gone around, I've tried to contact our officers, I've tried to assess how they're doing, talk a little bit about it, and and in doing that, maybe that's helping me a little bit as well. So I think we'll all work through it together.
There was a video showing some incredible courage from an officer telling the people trying to get them out, saying, "I will take a bullet before you do." I'm sure of it. Was that you? And if not, who was that? And can you?
No, I would like to think I was that cool, but no, unfortunately, that wasn't. I don't know that officer has been officially identified as of yet, but I'm told he's one of Sheriff McMahon's folks. But again, I haven't had that confirmed.
What was your reaction when you saw something like that?
I'm sorry?
What was your reaction when you saw that video?
I saw that everywhere yesterday. That was what was happening everywhere during this event.
Could you address the pride that you felt with the men and women and the manner in which they acted at that scene yesterday? And can you just address how you felt about those men and women that were under your command?
You know, we've taken a lot of hits lately. Some justified, much of it not justified. And it takes a toll. It takes a toll on all cops because it's hard being labeled and hard being branded as, you know, being rogue or, you know, and I guarantee you that no cop comes into this job with the mindset that, oh, great, now I have ultimate power to be corrupt and to violate people's rights. There are cops who go astray, but overwhelmingly, the vast majority of officers, and when I say vast majority, I'm talking 99.5% of the officers go out and they do the job to protect the public. And yesterday just reminded me of that, and it just solidified that again in my heart and in my mindset. And for that, I'm thankful.
We're gonna take 2 more questions.
Lieutenant, was there a moment, obviously you were on patrol that day. What have you heard from the residents? Obviously this is sinking in with a lot of people in this community. What have they told you?
You know, not just myself, but every officer who I'm encountering right now is getting the same kind of positive encouragement and support because, again, I think this we can never underline the tragedy that befell the city and so many families yesterday. But there is support for law enforcement.
Lieutenant, was there a moment when you realized that the threat you were facing had some level of sophistication, that they had some level of training, and then just to follow up on top of that, did they leave anything behind in the way of a manifesto or any messages?
It was pretty clear when we knew we had an active shooter and when we saw the severity and the amount of carnage upon our initial entry that this wasn't just a rogue individual. There was something more. So as far as us finding any kind of manifesto, no, sir. I don't have any information in regards to that. Okay. Thank you.
So real quickly, Mike made reference early on that this was hard to believe that this was happening in his town. Mike was raised in this town, went to high school in this town, and has spent a majority of his law enforcement career in this town. So it's genuine when he says that he felt that this was his town being attacked. So with that, thank you for being here, folks. We will be back in the morning for another press conference, and I believe somebody from the Sheriff's Department might stand by to talk about the photos and get the digital images. Thank you very much, folks.
Can you confirm the reports about terrorism? Chief, David. What about do we need more gun control?
Gun control? Anybody? Terrorism? Legislation? Climate change? I'll give you a quote.
All those pictures are on media, social media.